Titanic VR is both a VR and desktop simulation experience released by the developers Immersive VR Education Limited, who specialise in titles that primarily look to educate and stimulate a deep and heartfelt emotional experience with titles such as Apollo VR and ER VR. Immersive VR are an Irish-based development company who somewhat smudged the line between education and gaming. Although Titanic VR is available to work on PS4 and PCs without VR, it is with a VR headset that they are spectacularly capable of placing you deep within interactive, immersive and emotional experiences. Titanic VR is no exception.
And she was sinking past then. And all of a sudden she lifted up quickly and you could hear everything crashing through her. Everything that was movable was going through her. And then she went down and seemed to come up again. So I thought, well, now I'm going to leave. And I was hanging on to a board. We had two boards, starboard and port, which said, keep clear of propeller blades. And I was hanging on to one of these and I was getting higher and higher in the air. And I thought, well, now I'll go. And I dropped in. I had a lifeboat on. And I hit the water with a terrific crack. Luckily, I didn't hit anything when I dropped in. There were bodies all over the place. And then I looked up at the Titanic. So the propellers were right out of water, the rudder was right out, and I could see the bottom. And then gradually she glided away, and that was that. That was the last of the Titanic. I didn't want to die. I mean, I didn't see much chance of living, but I was gradually getting frozen up. And by the grace of God, I came across a lifeboat and they pulled me in.
Titanic VR was started by David Whelan on Kickstarter in 2016. Having met the target of €50,000, development began and the game was finally released in early access on the 24th of November 2017. It is available on PS4 and PC and supports VIVE, Oculus and PlayStation VR. And it has the following targets which may or may not be fulfilled. Multiplayer mode, which was conditionally available after €80,000 was funded. This may now be tied to the number of sales. And also the option to fully experience from the moment the iceberg was hit to her final sinking moments. And this would be recreated from the perspective of those who survived. To achieve this, they intend on using motion capture face scanning technology and professional voice actors.
You'll need to be careful of debris when descending with the Predator. It might make it easier if you position your sub so the lights shine down the void.
Good idea.
In Titanic VR, you play the role of Dr. Ethan Lynch, an Associate Professor of Maritime Archaeology at the fictional University of Nova Scotia. You will captain the dive research vessel and will be able to explore the entire Titanic wreck on the ocean floor of the North Atlantic. The submarine dive vessel has been well modelled with fully clickable and interactive controls. The sub also has a detachable ROV, which is just small enough to explore deep within the twisted wreckage and the tight corridors of the Titanic.
Deploying Predator, starting to descend.
The Titanic is a realistically recreated 3D model of the wreck as she was in 1985. Considerably more complete than she is today. The model has been built using comprehensive maps and images. I cannot personally vouch for the scale and accuracies of the Titanic, but the first moment you come upon her is as eerie as it is breathtaking. With each dive you will explore new areas, discover interesting artifacts and progress the game's storyline. In its current state, the ocean floor is mostly devoid of life. You can stumble across the odd jellyfish and crab, but mostly the star of this show is the Titanic, her once splendorous opulence and untimely demise, and of course those who perished and also those who survived.
Here we are.
Great. The purser's office and inquiry desk are on the port side.
Okay.
You'll need to go over the desk to get into the side room.
You are also responsible for processing and preserving items discovered, and this for me is the only area of the game where I felt more work needed to be done. In the analysis room you will experience confusion, bugs, and quickly discover whether or not your play space is big enough. I found that teleporting across the room to each area caused me to move around in my physical play space a little bit too much, forcing me ever closer to impenetrable barriers like a wall, for example. The position that you're facing when you teleport seemed wrong to me, and each of the doors for the units seemed to hit my VR body and forced an awkward reach-around solution. That being said, the preservation and careful manipulation of these recovered memories is a touching and indeed engaging aspect of the game. You will also get tasked with upgrading the ROV to allow for longer and more difficult explorative expeditions.
She's all ready to go for tomorrow.
Cool. I'll see you in the morning then.
The overall experience is slow and methodical, and it does a good job of stimulating emotions by including real-life interviews with survivors from the wreck.
I remember it all very clearly from the moment that my father wakened me, because of course I was in bed and asleep, until I saw that ship sink, and afterwards when I heard the people drown. I remember it all vividly.
Do you remember the panic, the fright? Were you panicked and frightened, or did you kind of, being 7 years of age, not really take it all in?
Oh no, I took it all in, but so the panic started, of course, after the all too few lifeboats had gone, and people were coming up on deck hoping to get into a lifeboat, and there weren't any boats for them. That's when the panic started, which we could hear when we were in the lifeboat.
I suppose as a very young person you could see adults panicking and screaming.
Yes,
must have been absolutely horrific.
Dreadful.
And your father went down with the ship?
Yes, he did.
Your mother, however, was spared.
She was saved with me, yes, that's right.
And I hate to drag it up, but do you remember going away in one of the dinghies and looking back at the ship?
I do indeed, yes. Very clearly, and to this day I hate looking at pictures of ships.
It was this aspect which really engaged with me and completely changed my perspective on a title which was otherwise a little uninspiring. This is indeed a poignant and moving experience that I hope will be fully realised. Not only is it well done, it really does make you think and to feel so much more than ever before, and in all honesty it also manages to evoke what must have been sheer terror and the overwhelming relief but lifelong effect that this experience must have had for those who did survive but had to witness it all. If you have a VR device, then I actually implore you to consider making a purchase, if for no other reason than to help ensure that all the features are realised, and then to allow for future generations to experience this, and then to be able to fully understand and reflect on what was and still is the incomparable tragedy that is the Titanic.
Whoa.
There's something you don't see every day.
She's a beauty.
My name's Mike. This is SimUK. Thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.
Okay, first things first. We've got a contract with the Titanic Society to place their commemorative plaque on the forecastle deck. Get yourself into position.
All right.
Deploy the Predator. The plaque is in its storage compartment.
How do I access the compartment?
Through the menu on your right-hand controller.
Okay, moving towards the spot now.
Great. Just remember what I said about these new ROVs. The range is only up to 15 meters, the advantage of driving without an umbilical.
Is there any way to boost the signal?
Yeah, but we need to upgrade the deep-sea transmitter, and they don't come cheap. The generosity of our sponsors and UNS funding only goes so far. If we complete these contract jobs, we might just be able to afford some upgrades.
What happens if I go out of range?
The automatic recall kicks in. ROV comes straight back to the sub.